To complete my post-installation tasks, I'm going to open Server Manager. Now, if you've closed this or it's not on your taskbar, then you can just go to Start and it should be pinned to the Start menu, or just go to Search and just type Server Manager and it'll bring it up for you. The first thing I'm going to do is check my activation status. I'm going to go to Local Server. Under this product ID, or beside product ID, I should say, it has this activated option that actually shows up. So if I click that, I already know it's activated. But it does ask if I want to change the product key. I don't want to do that. But I can see it says Windows is activated. And the product key, this is the end of the product key, 37CYR. Now, the reason I didn't have to enter that during the install, well, you're not prompted during the install. But the reason I don't have to enter it now is because evaluation versions come with an embedded product key, and they're only valid for 180 days. So I don't need to enter a product key. In a production environment, you would enter the product key that Microsoft supplied. So we are activated. I'm also going to set the IP address. Right now, I see this Ethernet. Now, if you are using a wireless network, then you would see Wi-Fi. But I'm going to click on this IPv4 address assigned by DHCP. That brings up my network connections window. I'm going to double click my network connection and go to Properties. And I'm going to double click this TCP IPv4. In this TCP IPv4, I am set to obtain an IP address automatically right now. That just means that you have a router, a wireless access point, some device on your network is automatically assigning IP addresses. Most routers do that, like your internet service provider on your home network. The router, sometimes they call it a gateway that they supply you, has this service, DHCP, Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol, natively built into it, and it automatically assigns IP addresses. That is something we configure later on in this course on Windows Server because Microsoft has that ability as well. What I want to do is use a static IP address. Sometimes it's called manual. I will click Use the Following, and the IP address that I want to use on this server is 192.168.1.250. I'm going to click in the subnet mask box, and it automatically fills itself in with the subnet mask. For now, I am not going to enter a default gateway, so I will leave that blank. Use the following DNS server address. I'm going to enter 192.168.1.250. Now, that looks a little weird at first, but the reason I'm doing that, in our upcoming lesson, we will make this server a domain controller, and it's going to host this Active Directory Domain Services software. And when we configure that, it's going to automatically install DNS on this server for us. So ultimately, this will be its own DNS server. Now, the primary purpose of DNS is to take a name that you know, and it resolves that name to an IP address. Like if you are on the internet and you type in google.com in your browser, that name, google.com, has to be resolved to the IP address of the website. That's what DNS does. You could think of it almost like a big phone book. You give it a name, and it has like a master list of names to IP addresses. So you type in a name, it looks up the name, and says, oh, this is the IP address, and that's what it actually connects you to. So this is the IP configuration we want for now. Our machine will not need internet access for quite a while in this course, so I am not going to enter a default gateway. The default gateway you would need if you want to connect to the internet, or if you want to connect to other networks, like within your environment, if you had multiple networks. We don't want that right now because some of the services that we deploy will conflict with your actual network that you're on, so we want to be a bit isolated. I'm going to click OK for that. And I'm also going to disable this IP version 6 here. So I'm going to clear that box for IP version 6. And we'll just OK and close. Now our IP configuration is set. The last thing I want to do is actually rename this. So the computer name is win-gibberish. We are not asked to supply a computer name during the install, so we rename it post-install. When I click on that, it just brings up the System Properties Computer Name tab. And I'm going to go to Change, and I want this to be named RTS-DC1. I'm just going to click OK for that. And it just tells me that the server itself has to restart. So we'll say OK, and we will close. And I'm going to restart now. We've completed our post-installation tasks.